Back in the shop on another frigid day. 26 degrees today. Let's go get a coat. Today I've got a 1x30 belt sander with a 5-inch disc. I went to the Friends and Family sale, got 25% off on this. So what's in it? They give you one sanding disc. So, first look. So, dust collection, angle bracket, cable, 2 adjustment levers, 3 adjustment levers, a very, very small miter gauge, and a swing table. It's, it might weigh 5 or 6 pounds. These are cast aluminum and are very, very light. Same thing here, very, very light. I encourage you to read the entire manual. Most important thing in the manual is the exploded view diagram. So if you would have to go and work on this, you know where things are supposed to go, and it gives all the parts. This is item 69033, combination sander. So let's just see if it works before we start working on it. Well, something's bound up. At least a little bit noisy. They give you one 80 grit belt and one 80 grit disc. What I plan to do is assemble this and get it ready to use, then change this belt to a 120 grit. So we'll see how to change the belt. The disc comes uninstalled, so we'll get a chance to see that. Okay, the setup instructions are almost non-existent, so we're going to go by making it look like the box. Okay, the first thing we need to put on the disc, so then we can put on the dust collection. Then we can put on the table. So, they give you no tools, and it uses a Phillips screwdriver. Keep some blocks of wood around for just such an occasion. Okay, so I went and got a manual screwdriver, but also went and got a driver. So we'll take the screws out. The screws that I took out are rusted. It's kind of weird. Okay, let's put the disc on. Probably should clean that off to some extent. That looks dirty. I'm just going to wipe it off. It has an adhesive back. You just want to grab a hold of that and peel it off. It says P80. We'll try to take some time and line this up, because once you stick it, it's stuck. The pad is smaller than the disc, so I want to try to get the excess all the way around even. So there's like a millimeter or two all the way around it. I'm sure these discs are fine, but they just feel very, very cheap. Now we need to put on the dust collection. Now this is why I went and got a manual screwdriver. So I could do this. I didn't tighten this one because they're elongated holes, so I want to be sure that I can move it around to get everything mounted. And I'm always afraid of using the cordless screwdrivers to put these in. That has a lot of torque, and if you just slip, you could strip the screw. It's unlikely, but it's possible. Prop it up against the box. Okay, now that I got all 4 of them in, I can tighten them up. Okay, this side has dust collection, and then this is just for the disc. This side has its own dust collection. It's kind of a little awkward. You're almost going to have to take those two and put them into a Y and hook them to dust collection. A little weird. Okay, this is next. It has little slots here. And there's little pins here to kind of key it and keep it in the right place. And that's kind of neat. I kind of like that. Kind of got to take it in at a high angle, like this. And there is the holder. That slot is L-shaped. So when you slide this in, you have to lift it up to get this in. That's not the least bit awkward. The other side, pretty much the same thing. Since I tightened this one, it's already lifted this side up. These are actually kind of different. They have a screw here, and you leave it loose. And while it's on there, you can pull this and move the handle independent of the pin. So let's put the pin in. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a 0, 15, 30, 45 with a little red marker. We'll check those after. So I'll tighten this. So if I wanted to tighten that and then move the lever, I would just pull up on it and move it around and insert it back in. That's actually kind of nice. Okay, this installs by going simply like this. And this holds it in place. So what we got to do is put this through here, put this through here. Now I've got to slip. So now I've got to hold this in place while I put this on. But since these handles come off, I'm taking the handle off. And I'll just screw that in. And that has a star washer on the nut, and that is supposed to keep it tight. So now that I've got that, I'll put it at 90 degrees and start tightening it. Okay, so that's tight, so now I'll put this back on. A chance of that getting in the way. And I know I'm going to have to be adjusting that, so I think I want to leave it like that. But I can easily adjust it once it's on by pulling it out and rotating it to get it to a different position. But that tightens it and then lets me loosen it to work on it. I'm actually going to take this protector off. I'll put it back on before I use it. But it'll let me line up the table. I loosened this, so now I can pull this up, try to get 90 degrees. Okay, is it square? I'm not actually checking square to the belt, I'm checking square to this backer plate. Okay, when I pressed on that to see if it was square, this loosened. There is a pin in the back of this. There's a pin right through here, and you can adjust it with an Allen key that they don't give you, by the way. There's a leveling pin back here. And that makes contact with this, and that keeps it level. Obviously, that's not correct because this isn't square. I'm going to take the belt off and change it. When I do that and the belt's not on there, I'll re-level this table to this backer plate. Okay, now that we have the basics, I'm going to put that on, although I'm going to take it off in just a few minutes. Okay, let's see if it will power on. It's actually not any noisier than my benchtop sander. Okay, now this is adjustable. It mounts here, and there's a similar one in the back. And that will allow it to slide a little back and forth. But see, that's not very sturdy. And I do not think there is a way to tighten that because that's the only mount here and on the back. So I don't think this side's ever going to be 90 degrees. Also got that locked and it still moves. So let's see, this gives. It must be aluminum, the way it moves. But you can look at this. I'll loosen these to see if there is any movement. But that pin that this thing goes in, there's not a lot of room for adjustment. It's either in the slot or it's not. Seems like a slow start to me, but okay, that is off. And like I said, there's no way to pull that up any further other than to elongate these holes more. And I might take a Dremel tool and do that. Okay, that ended up in the way. I'm just going to turn it down, put it there. It has this little miter gauge. It's in the slot, goes back and forth. But without this being 90 degrees, I'm not sure that's worth anything. Let's change the belt. I'm going to unplug it, verify that, turning it off and on. So you take this side off. Notice there's two tabs. They go in these two holes. So you just do that. And one screw is all that holds it on. There's this adjustment. You want to loosen that. That's going to release the tension so that you can get the belt off. So that should slide off of those. Those are all crown pulleys. Oh, you got to take that off. I don't think you did. I didn't think you had to take that cover off, but you do. And that screw can stay in there because that's a slot. So little P80, doesn't give the size, but it's 30. Harbor Freight carries these 1x30s, but I think they only carry 80 and 120. So while we have that apart, let's talk about this piece. This came as an extra loose piece, and in the setup guide, it doesn't show you where this goes at all. But in the exploded view diagram, it shows it right here. And it's called the lower belt guide. But if you put that in there, you cannot rotate this down. So I'm thinking it's optional, so I'm going to leave it off. Okay, so here's the new belt. The rotation on the belt points this way, and this thing rotates this way. So while we have that down, let's look at adjusting this to 90 degrees. It is off. It needs to go further up, and I don't think it will. So what I did is I grabbed the square and held it against the table and the backstop and tightened it up. So I did get it at 90 degrees. Now there is that set screw that actually is in the right place. So that was the default from the factory. I worry about that table slipping, but we'll see how that goes in actual practice. So we just put this back on. Okay, so adjusting the tracking does loosen that, but not enough. put that back on. So let's adjust the tracking back where it was, which is pretty tensioned. Okay, I don't need inside of this anymore, and while I don't have this fully adjusted, before I go to adjust it, I want to put this on. I won't be back in there. And it'll be a little safer. And I've got this cover to put back on. Okay, that's as close to the middle of that pulley as I can get it. Okay, so it's all the way together. How does it work? So I just so happen to have a piece of wood. Well, I measured that was 90 degrees. I measured that to be 90 degrees, but if you look at the way that this sanded, it doesn't look like it's at 90 degrees because that's not an even sand. Let's try this one. Well, pretty much the same thing. Can you see the bend on that? Can you see the angle on this? So this sanding belt, the sanding disc here is not at 90 degrees. So you can see that there is a slope on that. I wouldn't be able to use that for very much without fixing it. Bad. I didn't run dust collection, and I should have, because now I've got a little bit of a mess. Problems I have with this sander is this table is not 90 degrees. And because of the nature of how this attaches, it's not going to be adjustable to 90 degrees. So if you look at that, I had that right on the end of that slot, and it doesn't allow it to rise anymore. So I've actually got to get a Dremel or something and file away that edge. So that's as high as the front of this will come. So that's never going to be square without some modification of the table. Okay, so might as well just fix it now. You're better off to take the handle off of this one once you get it loose. So the table has to come up to make this work correctly. And what's stopping it from coming up is the screws through here. So it needs to go to right there, and that covers up a little bit of the hole. So what I need to do is take a file and move that back just a little. Found a very fine round file. This is from the file pack that I previously reviewed. So what I need to do is just move that down a little. That's going to take a while. A Dremel would be infinitely faster, but I want to take a little bit at a time. I don't want to overshoot and weaken the mounts, especially this one that doesn't have a lot of room right there. And a Dremel is very aggressive. If you can see that, Basically all I've done is take the paint off, maybe just a little bit of aluminum. And there's the filings. So I'm just going to put this on. So it's always easier to get this on if you raise it. Let's see. Much better. That is pretty much 90 degrees. The thickness of the paint in those grooves is what made it out of square. See, so I put this on now and it's square. Let's get the better of the two. Now I've got the problem that this orange cover is kind of messed up. Probably need to loosen that and retighten it. Frieight sells these long reach Allen keys. Well worth the price. This is SAE. There is a metric one. This is just what I found quicker. See, since they're longer, they get in there better. What I'm going to do is loosen this up. The wheel is attached to the motor. This is attached to the frame. So I can actually loosen that and move it back to test this. So I'll break the tension on this and loosen it. I don't know how much room I'm going to have. Not a lot. I'm just going to move it out of the way enough to measure. The fact that it comes over the top doesn't matter except for when you're measuring the angle. So that is 90 degrees. So the hole in the slot is actually cut correctly. The problem is when they paint it, it covers up the edge, restricts the movements just enough to throw the table off. So if you clean the paint off those ends, that'll take care of it. Now the other one is right about there. So I want them even. I don't want to mess with that other one. It's very hard to get into that other one. So I'll tighten this back up. This is where the long reach comes in handy. I'll put the end on, and I can really torque on it. So that won't move now. Okay, that worked out to be 964. So I'll put this on, and I'll put the screw back in. And I want to tighten this better. I'm having to continually rotate that because of the dust collection in the frame. Okay, so fixing the table takes a little bit of filing on these grooves. I took care of that problem, and I don't have any other problems that I found while I was putting this together. Seems to work pretty good. Okay, I'll probably be using this in the next couple weeks to make a couple projects, and I'll film doing that and post an update of how it works. If you like the videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.